Welcome to the Deep Dive. We grab a stack of sources, pull out the most vital insights, and we'll deliver them straight to you. Today, our deep dive is into a really profound sermon from Pastor Rosalyn Ryan. It's titled, Hold the Line in Prayer.
Mm-hmm.
If you look around us, the world often feels like it's spinning out of control. Wars, political divides, economic jitters, families facing immense pressure, a rise in violence. It's easy to feel overwhelmed,
Definitely
to
does.
sort of disengage, or even to think, haven't I prayed enough already?
Right.
But the core of Pastor Ryan's message, and really the mission of this deep dive today, is this powerful call to action. Hold the line.
And what's truly compelling, I think, about the sermon is how it defines holding the line. It's drawn straight from military strategy.
Yeah.
It means refusing to retreat when you're under pressure, standing your ground against, fierce opposition,
Right.
remaining steadfast, keeping your position, and fiercely defending what's been entrusted to you. It's really about not giving an inch, even when you're utterly exhausted or, deeply discouraged.
That imagery, holding your ground, is just so vivid, isn't it?
It is.
And the sermon really drives home that this ministry itself was built on this rock-solid foundation of prayer. It even highlights Elder Angela Fleming's unwavering faithfulness, praying week after week until a true company of intercessors was raised up. It's not just theory, it's like lived history.
Precisely, yeah. And as we stand at what the sermon calls the threshold of a new season, the encouragement is crystal clear. Maintain a place of fervent, effectual prayer.
Fervent and effectual.
Right. This isn't about just routine, or casual requests.
Yeah.
It's about persistent, urgent, humble prayer, a kind of prayer that, it absolutely refuses to let go until heaven responds.
And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. Pastor Ryan's sermon outlines 4 core characteristics of this kind of successful, breakthrough prayer: persistence, urgency, seeking, and humility. Ready to maybe transform your understanding of the power of prayer? Let's dive in. So, okay, let's dive into that first characteristic: persistence. When the sermon talks about being persistent in prayer, what does that truly mean? Beyond just not giving up.
Yeah, it's way more than just keeping at it. The sermon actually kind of radically redefines persistence. It says it's being firm, almost like obstinate in making a demand.
Obstinate.
Yeah, importunate, insistent, and urgent. It's about this ceaseless, constant, unending pursuit, a refusal to stop until the answer comes. And E.M. Bounds, who's, a profound voice on prayer mentioned often in the sermon, he really captures it. He says true importunity means holding on, continuing, waiting with this unrelaxed grip, even if it feels restless, but also paradoxically with a restful patience.
Unrelaxed grip, restful patience. That's interesting.
It is. And he stresses, without persistence, prayer may go unanswered.
That idea of an unrelaxed grasp, yeah, that really sticks with you. And the sermon then just brings this to life with some incredible biblical examples. Take Elijah, for instance.
Oh, yeah. Think about Elijah. First, he prays for a drought, right? It lasts over 3 years.
Right.
Then he prays 7 times for rain, sending his servant back and forth, until that tiny cloud finally appears.
7 times.
7 times. It wasn't a one-and-done thing. It was a relentless pursuit. As Bounds notes, Elijah's praying was strong, insistent, and restless. Feeble praying serves no results. It speaks to this unyielding focus.
And beyond Elijah's, epic persistence, Jesus himself used parables to show this, right?
Absolutely.
Like that unforgettable story, the woman and the unjust judge. The whole point, Luke tells us, was to teach that men ought always to pray and not to faint. So this widow, she keeps appealing to this judge who doesn't fear God, doesn't care about people.
A tough case.
Totally.
Yeah.
And he eventually grants her request, not because it's just, but just because her continual coming wore him down.
Right. She just wouldn't stop.
Exactly. Yeah. And Jesus then asks, okay, if even an unjust, unfeeling judge responds to sheer persistence, how much more will God respond to his children who cry day and night?
That's a challenging thought, isn't it? It really highlights that some breakthroughs might require this level of desperate reliance.
Yeah.
Something that pushes past our usual expectations, maybe even our comfort zones. As E.M. Bounds puts it so powerfully, we can do nothing without prayer, but all things can be done by importunate prayer. It just flips our usual understanding of limitations.
And then there's the persistent friend in Luke 11. Can you imagine? A guy shows up at his friend's house at midnight, eating bread for a guest who just arrived. The friend, understandably, refuses at first. It's late.
Yeah, I'm in bed.
Yeah, exactly. But because of his importunity, the friend gets up and gives him whatever he needs. And this parable introduces that famous instruction: ask, seek, knock.
Yeah, and the sermon emphasizes that sheer importunity succeeded where all other pleas and influences had failed. It just broke through. And it also helps clarify what asking, seeking, and knocking really mean in this context.
Okay.
So asking is, direct prayer for your needs. Seeking goes deeper. It's finding God's face for things that advance his plan, his righteousness, maybe studying the Bible, fulfilling your duties while you wait.
Right.
And knocking means actively entering God's presence, asking and seeking straight from God. It implies real diligence, a determined approach.
The Syrophoenician woman, too, from the Gospels. Her story is just an incredible testament to this persistence. She faced so many obstacles.
So many.
Initially stopped, seemed to be denied Jesus' presence, treated with indifference, and even, well, faced what seemed like a humiliating comparison to a dog.
Right, which sounds so harsh to our ears.
It does. Yet the sermon highlights she just accepted the initial pushback, ignored the discouragement, overcame every single barrier, and ultimately won her request by her sheer, unyielding persistence.
Her story is just this vivid demonstration of the matchless power of persistence in prayer. She simply refused to take no for an answer, and that unwavering resolve, it moved Jesus.
We also hear about Jacob wrestling with the angel all night long.
Classic story.
Wrestle until daybreak, famously refusing to let go unless he was blessed. His hip was dislocated in the struggle.
Yeah, a physical cost.
But his name was changed to Israel, meaning he who struggled with God and prevailed. What kind of wrestling are we talking about here? Is it like a physical fight?
Well, this wrestling prayer, it changed Jacob's life. It changed his brother Esau's attitude towards him, and it literally affected nations to come.
Wow.
But the sermon clarifies this isn't necessarily a physical struggle in the way we might think. It's more an inward spiritual force, something activated by the Holy Spirit.
Okay.
E.M. Bounds describes it as quiet, firm, and urgent, even silent sometimes, when there aren't any visible outlets for its mighty forces. It's an internal battle of will and faith.
And finally, Abraham, pleading for Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right.
He repeatedly pleaded with God, bargaining down the number of righteous people needed to spare the city, from 50 all the way down to 10.
And this example, it prompts a really profound question from the sermon.
What's that?
Do you think that Abraham lost Sodom and Gomorrah because he failed to press in?
Oof.
Yeah. It suggests this really challenging possibility. Perhaps God wouldn't have stopped giving if he hadn't stopped asking. It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? What breakthroughs might we miss if we stop asking just a bit too soon?
So wrapping up persistence, what does this all mean for you listening? It seems persistence in prayer is this ability to hold on, press on, and wait with unwavering faith, even when the answer isn't immediately visible.
Exactly. And Andrew Murray offers some powerful encouragement here. He says, "Don't let delay shake your faith, for it is faith that will provide the answer in time. Each believing prayer is a step nearer to the final victory."
I like that. Each prayer is a step nearer.
Yeah. Persistent prayer is courageous. It's unyielding until the cry is heard and the petition is granted.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Our second characteristic, urgency. How does this complement persistence, or where does it differ?
That's a good question. Urgency means compelling immediate attention. It's described as burning, dire, imperative, instant, pressing. It's a demand that feels like it can't be delayed.
Okay, so persistence is the duration, urgency is the intensity.
Kind of, yeah. While persistence is about continuing to ask, urgency is about the intensity and the immediacy of the need right now. The sermon really emphasizes this. Jesus Christ made it very plain that the secret of prayer and its success lies in its urgency or importunity. We must not only pray, we must also pray with great urgency, with intensity, and with repetition. We must pray again and again. We must not get tired of praying. True praying, it says, has to stay in advance in both effort and urgency until the answer comes.
A really vivid example given in the sermon is King Hezekiah and Israel when they were facing that terrifying Assyrian army.
Oh, absolutely. In Isaiah 36, you have the Rabshakeh, the Assyrian official, standing right outside Jerusalem, just unleashing threats, lies, arguments, all designed to shatter the people's confidence in God.
Right. Psychological warfare.
Totally. He audaciously claims Judah's God isn't strong enough to rescue them, even like lumping the God of Israel in with man-made idols.
Unbelievable.
He basically implies it would take an impossible miracle, and, this is not the time to expect one. But the Jews, under Hezekiah's command, they just held their silence.
So facing that kind of blatant blasphemy and just an overwhelming military threat, how did Hezekiah, in that moment of intense pressure, how did he embody this urgency? What was his immediate, desperate response?
Well, in Isaiah 37, King Hezekiah hears the blasphemy, and his response is immediate and profound. He tears his clothes, covers himself with sackcloth, and goes straight into the house of the Lord.
Right to the source.
Exactly, recognizing it as the only true refuge in that kind of trouble. He sends messengers to the prophet Isaiah, describing the situation as a day of trouble and distress and of rebuke and of disgrace. Now, initially, his faith might have wavered just a tiny bit, saying, it may be that the Lord your God will hear.
A little uncertainty there.
A little, but God sends a specific, immediate message back through Isaiah. Do not be afraid. I will put a spirit in him. He will hear a rumor and return. I will cause him to fall by the sword. Very specific. And then later, Hezekiah gets another threatening letter, even more direct, from the Assyrian king.
Oh, no.
Yeah, his response. Renewed, intense urgency. He doesn't, call a committee meeting.
Right.
He goes straight back to the house of the Lord, spreads the actual letter out before God, and prays earnestly. He acknowledges God as the only true God and asks for salvation, not just for their sake, but so all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you are the Lord, even you only.
Wow. That's focus.
It's a focused, immediate, desperate appeal in a time of absolute peril. And the sermon highlights 7 specific predictions God made and fulfilled right after that prayer. It shows that urgent response.
That's such a powerful illustration. Urgency isn't just about wanting something quickly, is it?
No.
It's recognizing the dire need and responding with that immediate, focused, intense prayer, really trusting God for a specific, timely answer. Okay, on to our third characteristic, seeking. This might sound straightforward, but what's the deeper meaning here for prayer? How does seeking show up as a powerful aspect of our prayer life?
Yeah, seeking, it means actively trying to find something, right? To strive toward a specific goal, to endeavor to obtain something by clearly expressing one's need or desire. It's an active, very intentional pursuit. And our sources give us some really illuminating principles here. 1 Chronicles 16 says, "Glory in his holy name. Let the heart of them rejoice that seek the Lord. Seek the Lord in his strength. Seek his face continually." Continually. And the Fire Study Bible notes, they expand on this, saying, our joy, our security, our freedom from anxiety, it really depends on our trust and gratitude to God, and crucially, on our personal prayer life.
Mm-hmm.
Those who constantly pray with thanksgiving, it says, can have profound confidence in God's presence and help. It's about this continuous orientation towards God. Then Isaiah 55 urges us, seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Now, the sermon notes this carries a really profound implication.
Which is?
That there will come a time when it's too late to seek the Lord. It references examples in the Bible where basically God's ear was no longer accessible.
Wow, that's sobering.
It is. It really underscores the critical importance of seeking him now. And Hebrews 11 is just unequivocal. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him.
Diligently seek him.
Diligently. This isn't passive belief. It means we first have to believe God exists, okay? But then we have to actively exercise that belief by drawing near, by truly realizing we're in the presence of the all-seeing Jehovah. James 4 tells us, draw nigh to God, and he will draw nigh to you. And this isn't just like a transactional exchange. Our greatest reward, as the sources emphasize, is the sheer joy in the presence of God himself.
Yeah, it's the goal.
That's the ultimate reward. And passages like Deuteronomy 4, Matthew 7, Jeremiah 29, they all reiterate that we must diligently seek him, meaning a focused, wholehearted effort, desperately searching for someone specific in a huge crowd, searching with all your heart and with all your soul. And it's a striking contrast. Romans 3 highlights that the natural unregenerate heart, meaning, apart from God's spirit, it just isn't wired to truly understand or seek after God.
Right.
But then you have Psalm 63 showing David's intense, almost visceral longing. "O God, thou art my God. Early will I seek thee. My soul thirsteth for thee." It's this deep, fundamental hunger for God himself.
So seeking is clearly more than just asking for things. It's this active pursuit of God himself. Mm. What are some maybe real-world biblical examples of this profound kind of seeking?
Well, we see David demonstrating this pretty consistently. Remember when the Philistines fought against Keilah?
Vaguely, yeah.
David didn't just rush into battle. He inquired of the Lord before taking any action.
Okay.
He asked, "Shall I go and smite these Philistines?" Then he asked again when his men got nervous. He even inquired if the men of Keilah would betray him to Saul later. And God told him, yeah, they will.
Wow.
The critical insight here is to discern God's will beforehand rather than, desperately trying to figure it out after you've already made hasty choices. And similarly, remember at Ziklag, when his camp was raided, everything seemed lost.
Right, that was devastating for him.
Totally. But his immediate response, he inquired of the Lord, "Shall I pursue after this troop? Shall I overtake them?" And God's answer was clear, "Pursue, for thou shalt surely overtake them, and without fail recover all." His first instinct was seek God first, and King Jehoshaphat too, in 2 Chronicles. The text notes that even though he had some flaws, he prepared thine heart to seek God.
Prepared his heart.
Yeah. And when threatened by that vast army, he wasn't paralyzed by fear. Instead, he set himself to seek the Lord and proclaimed a fast throughout all Judah,
A whole nation.
the whole nation. All of Judah gathered from their cities to ask help of the Lord. It was this collective, intentional act of seeking God together in a crisis.
So, okay, let's bring it home. For you listening, how do we apply this? What does it truly mean to seek the Lord in your daily life, according to these sources?
Well, the sources suggest we seek the Lord by actively turning from sin, first of all, by humbling ourselves before God, by diligently preparing our hearts, seeking with all our heart and soul, and doing it continually. It's an ongoing journey, not just a one-time event.
And when we commit to that active pursuit, what are the tangible benefits? What do the sources tell us we can expect from seeking the Lord?
Oh, the promises are just abundant. If you seek him, he will be found. That's 1 Chronicles 28. If you seek him, he will answer powerful promise from 2 Chronicles 7.
Okay.
You will not want for any good thing. That's Psalms 34. You will truly have life. Psalm 69 and Amos 5 highlight that. He will come and rain down righteousness upon you. Hosea 10 says that beautifully.
Wow.
And perhaps most compellingly, he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him, that core truth from Hebrews 11.
All right, finally, we come to humility. Now, this is a word we hear a lot, but what does it truly mean to be humble or to embody humility in prayer in a way that actually unlocks breakthrough?
Yeah, it's crucial. Humility, fundamentally, it's the quality of being humble, right? A modest or low view of one's own importance, but it goes deeper. To humble oneself means to actively deprive oneself of esteem, self-worth, or perceived effectiveness.
Deprive oneself. That sounds harsh.
It sounds harsh, but it means to abase, degrade, or even demean oneself in the presence of God. Not necessarily before others, but before God. Common scriptures like 2 Chronicles 7, James 4, 1 Peter 5, they all speak unequivocally to humbling ourselves before God. E.M. Bounds offers a remarkably deep definition here. He says to be humble is to have a profoundly low estimate of oneself, to be modest, lowly, with a disposition to actually seek obscurity, avoiding publicity or high places.
Seek obscurity.
Yeah. It involves genuine self-abasement and self-depreciation, never exalting oneself, but rather, as Romans 12 advises, preferring and praising others. It means the total absence of pride and anything remotely like self-conceit. No self-praise, no self-exaltation.
Right.
And the very word humility, interestingly, comes from humus, meaning of the earth.
Like dirt.
Exactly. Which speaks to embracing a place of utter dependency without shame. Our greatest value, as 2 Corinthians reminds us, isn't in our human strength, but in the treasure God has deposited in these earthen vessels, our fragile human bodies, through Christ.
That's a really radical reframe of where our value comes from. And James 4 just drives this home, doesn't it? God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble. It's so stark.
It is stark. God actively sets himself against the proud, while grace, which is divine favor, goodwill, kindness, a gift, is freely given to the humble.
So how does that unforgettable parable of the Pharisee and the publican in Luke 18 perfectly illustrate this contrast?
Oh, it's a perfect illustration. The parable serves as this incredibly sharp contrast. You have the Pharisee, outwardly pious, accustomed to prayer, meticulously following all the motions.
Picking all the boxes.
Ticking all the boxes, going to the temple at the right time, right place. But he never truly prayed effectively. Why? Because his prayer was poisoned by self-praise, self-congratulation, self-exaltation.
Right. I thank thee, I am not as other men are.
Exactly. Though God heard his words, the sermon notes, he condemned him because of his pride. His words were heard, but his heart wasn't right. And then, in stark contrast, you have the publican. He stood far off, with this deep, crushing sense of his sins, realizing his spiritual poverty, his utter lack of righteousness. He stood in profound humiliation and despair, didn't even dare to look up, just cried out for mercy.
God, be merciful to me, a sinner.
Precisely. That is the vivid picture of true humility in praying. It demonstrates the utter worthlessness of self-righteousness and the great value, the beauty, and the divine commendation that comes to humility of heart. It's just crystal clear. Pride slams the gate of prayer shut, while humility opens it wide, inviting that divine response. And Isaiah 57 reinforces this so powerfully, saying that the high and lofty one actually chooses to dwell with the contrite and humble in spirit, to revive the spirit of the humble.
So it's not about like groveling or false modesty, is it? It's more about an honest assessment of ourselves before God, which then positions us for his grace.
Exactly right. E.M. Bounds concludes that lowliness of mind truly gives wings to prayer, and self-depreciation provides ready access to grace. Pride, self-esteem, self-praise, conversely, they just shut the door. Our prayers, he says memorably, must be set low before they can ever rise high, having much of the dust on them before they can ever have much of the glory of the skies on them.
Wow. Much of the dust.
Yeah. It's a profound paradox, isn't it? True elevation in prayer actually begins with a humble descent.
So, wow, we've taken a really deep dive today into what it truly means to hold the line in prayer, guided by Pastor Rosalyn Ryan's powerful sermon. We've explored the unyielding power of persistence, the compelling necessity of urgency, the active, intentional commitment of seeking,
Right.
and that foundational, grace-inviting posture of humility.
And in a world that, let's face it, often feels chaotic and just overwhelming, the sermon's call to maintain fervent, effectual prayer feels more relevant, maybe more urgent than ever.
I think so, too.
These aren't just, ancient concepts locked away in a book. They are the living, dynamic characteristics of a responsive breakthrough relationship with God.
And what's truly fascinating here, something that really stuck with me, is the idea that our prayers aren't just for our own comfort or needs, important as those are,
Right.
but they can influence outcomes on potentially a much larger scale. Think back to Abraham pleading for Sodom and Gomorrah. The sermon left us with that thought that really challenges our comfort zone.
Yeah, that question.
Perhaps God wouldn't have stopped giving if he hadn't stopped asking. What does that mean for you as you reflect on your own approach to prayer, to seeking God? What new possibility for breakthrough might emerge if you truly chose in this season to hold the line?